You're the MP, Frank. You should know better than I do.
The higher up the... No, the further up the...
The further a politician gets up the tree...
Faye, do you remember?
What?
That hoary old Students' Union joke.
About politicians and trees.
There was a monkey in it somewhere.
I remember Frank using it in some union debate.
Politicians are like monkeys. The higher they get up the tree, the uglier they look from below.
That's it.
Where'd I put my drink?
Well, over there. You finished it.
We'll be eating in about 10 minutes.
Anyway, Frank, we'll have the chance to test the truth of it on you before long. You must surely get a government job next time. There can't be any doubts, can there? I mean, after you get your private member's bill through.
After?
I'm not expecting any snags, are you?
Ian, only a fool would think there are no snags in politics.
Did you both know exactly what you wanted to do, even at university?
Oh, well, as I was already studying medicine.
Yes, but general practice or specialization?
I never set my sights above general practice.
Well, you wound up in Harley Street.
In a modest way. You were the one with the ambition. Oh, you should have seen him in those days, Faye. Moral hair shirt, staunch champion of the underdog.
Well, I hope I haven't changed that much. Apart from the hair shirt, of course.
No, I have to admit, the hair shirt isn't what it was. But when you get your bill through Parliament, you'll have done more for handicapped children than any individual in years. They'll have to give you a government job next time.
Ian, I wish you'd stop saying that.
Superstitious? I thought that was for actors, not politicians.
Many people have yet to be convinced of the difference.
Thank you.
Well, some of your colleagues, the point's a fair one.
All the same, there are more people in the House doing a really worthwhile job than most people care to realise. I mean, take the support I'm getting for this bill, for instance, from all parties. It's not just a one-man show.
But you got the ball rolling.
Ian is determined to pay you a compliment, so why not wear it like a rose?
Thank you.
Oh. Well, shall I get it?
I may as well. Hello? Oh, Tom. What can I do for you?
Sounds like his constituency chairman.
Is that good news or bad?
Oh, you're a doctor. Does good news ever arrive at this hour?
Tom, look, I'll take this in the study. I'll put the phone down, but it won't cut you off, all right?
Problems?
Oh, no. You know how long it takes Tom to get to the point. Sorry, Ian.
Not at all.
Ian, next time, Ian, you must make sure that... Harriet, is it?
Harriet.
Well, see that she isn't so busy. I'd love to meet her. We both would.
Well, it might be rather harder than you think. Barristers tend to be as elusive as politicians.
Oh, everyone's so busy being something or becoming somebody. Shall we? Just living seems to have gone out of fashion.
There's nothing like a sense of indispensability. I'll admit, I sometimes miss the midnight call to prod at somebody's grumbling appendix or peer at some infant's inflamed tonsils.
Like brandy?
Thank you.
But you do like this new practice.
It's what I wanted. It's more routine, that's all.
Harley Street always sounds very impressive.
What? Examining victims of industrial accidents in the hope of finding a congenital condition which might reduce the insurance.
Or the lack of one, which might increase it.
Oh, well, there is that side to it. That was a splendid dinner, Faye. You and Frank must come out with me as soon as you can, whether I can whistle up Harriet or not.
And always provided I can squeeze another evening out of Frank.
Sound like a couple of grass widows, don't we?
Well, aren't we?
Well, you must come and have lunch with me.
Is a Mozart all right?
Fine, fine. You will, I hope.
I'd love to. It's my favourite luxury. That was quick, Tom. What was it all about? Or is it a secret?
No secret. There's been an accident at that chemical plant, Marshall Cross Place. It's in my constituency.
It doesn't mean you have to go out.
No. They're keeping me informed by phone.
Police patrol cars are touring the areas, warning residents to remain inside, keeping doors and windows shut. However, a spokesman for the company said that in the absence of a freak wind change, the toxic fumes should evaporate harmlessly over the open country. A bulletin from the local hospital says that the condition of the two security guards is satisfactory. However, the condition of the youth who suffered considerably longer exposure to the escaping fumes is giving rise to some concern. And now the headlines again.
You remembered the address?
You've had a hard day in court.
No further comment.
Do you usually open your door at this hour?
Only when I'm expecting someone.
Well, if I'm intruding.
I saw your car from the kitchen window.
Ah, well, in that case, what's that?
Hot chocolate. Do you want some? I take it you don't.
That forensic brain of yours.
How was your dinner? Sorry I couldn't make it.
Fine, fine. They hope to meet you another time.
I just heard something rather odd on the news. Isn't Elmdale Frank Jarrot's constituency?
A chemical plant, you mean?
You heard about it then?
Yes, Frank's been on the phone solidly for the last half hour. It seems to be turning out a bit nastier than they thought at first.
In what way?
Oh, I haven't any details. Frank's going up there first thing in the morning. And I'm taking his wife out to lunch.
Cozy.
You can join us if you like.
Thank you.
No, seriously. We're meeting at Mario's. That's close enough for you, isn't it?
All right, I'll join you there at 1. If nothing comes up.
We shall live in hopes.
Was that all?
All what?
You came for? To ask me to chaperone at lunch.
Not exactly. Well, I felt like another drink, and I said to myself, Moody, you shouldn't be driving anyway. Another drink and you'll be over the hill. Irresistible bait for prowling breathalyzers.
So?
So here I am.
Morning, Bill. Morning, Rosie.
Oh, Miss Peterson, you're in, aren't you?
Yes, I was given a lift to save me having to park. Is that the morning paper?
Yeah.
Mine didn't arrive. I think the newsboys joined the union. These mine?
I was just about to take them in.
What on earth was that stuff?
Oh, God alone knows. Guard and Marshall Cross Chemicals.
At a conservative guess, I would say there are going to be some fireworks.
You may well be right. And some of them are heading your way.
What do you mean?
Dennis Chapman was on the phone not 10 minutes ago. Wants to see you urgently. About this.
All right, Sir Walter. Camera's rolling. Whenever you're ready.
As chairman of Marshall Cross Chemicals, I have been authorized by the board to make the following statement. Marshall Cross Chemicals view with the utmost concern the events of last night at our Elmdale plant. A full and thorough investigation of how the leakage of toxic fumes occurred has already begun, and a complete report will be made available to the public at the earliest possible moment. Until such time as the failure has been diagnosed and remedied, the plant will remain closed. In this event, I wish to emphasize there is no further danger, and we confidently anticipate no similar occurrences at any time in the future. Now, if any of you have any questions.
Sir Walter, do you consider that a purely internal inquiry will be sufficient to allay public fears of a repetition of this kind of incident? Wouldn't a public inquiry have been more appropriate?
I wouldn't have thought so. We, after all, have a greater interest than anyone in ensuring there is no repetition.
Except for the public, of course.
That goes without saying.
But it is a fact, is it not, that if it wasn't for a chance wind that sent the toxic fumes over the open countryside, it would have affected the town itself.
That is a fact, unfortunately. Or perhaps I should say fortunately.
Sir Walter, some reports say that when they evaporate, the fumes will prove to have caused a defoliant effect upon the surrounding crops and countryside. Can you comment on this?
At this time, no. I shall be travelling up to see for myself after this conference. I shall also be visiting the hospital to see the 2 security guards and, of course, the young man, a poacher, I believe, taking an illegal shortcut.
Presumably, if it hadn't been for the poacher, the leakage might have remained undetected until far more damage had been done.
I am quite certain that our staff would have realized what was going on. All systems at Elmdale are carefully monitored.
Sir Walter, toxic fumes, defoliant effect. Can you tell us what is happening up at Elmdale?
Obviously, I can't give you details of our research program. We are developing certain substances for use in industry in the long run to the benefit of society as a whole. However, the possibility of toxic byproducts is always present.
So you knew there was a danger?
We believed we had taken adequate precautions.
Obviously you hadn't.
Well, I should prefer to wait till we find out what really happened.
You're quite sure you don't mind my smoking, Miss Peterson?
If I minded solicitors who smoked, Mr. Chapman, I'd be very short of work indeed.
I doubt that very much.
This whole business is quite extraordinary. I'm intrigued.
You haven't heard the half yet. Things have barely started.
The press seem fairly well into their stride.
Wait till you read the later editions after various questions in the House this afternoon.
From Frank Jarrot?
Oh, he'll have to show some interest as the local member. But I imagine he'll be playing his cards very carefully at this stage, if I know him.
What does that mean?
If I and my clients have our way, Miss Peterson, Frank Jarrot will be in a lot of trouble.
I'd assumed you wanted to retain me for a civil action against Marshall Cross.
We want you to represent the landowners and farmers in the full public inquiry, which should, and I believe will, be set up. Just imagine if the town had been affected. Only needed a change of wind. We'd be in the biggest storm since Aberfan by now.
Fact remains the town wasn't affected.
But precautions must be taken for the future.
Marshall Cross claimed to have that in hand.
Whitewash.
But if you're only representing the landowners and farmers...
My clients want to get to the bottom of this. So do a lot of other people. And the only way to do that is with a full, formal tribunal of inquiry.
It's a tribunal under the 1921 Act.
That's right.
But is the case serious enough? Surely only a major disaster would... Narrow escape is one thing.
Major disaster and or political scandal, Miss Peterson. Those seem to be the criteria. We've got a touch of both here.
Go on.
Well, it's all in here. Right from the time 5 years ago when Marshall Cross first sought permission to build that plant. I acted for the local association which opposed them, unsuccessfully. If you wonder whether I'm still nursing a grudge, let's take a look at the file. The risk of what happened last night was known at the time, because it had already happened twice before at similar plants, both built by Marshall Cross, one in Australia, one in South Africa. They managed to hush it up because no one was affected.
You knew this 5 years ago?
We found out.
Surely you had the chance to make it known, public hearings and so on.
And so on, right up to the ministry.
Well?
Well, it's not easy to get a government department to block a chance to create new jobs when they're needed. That doesn't win votes.
But if the danger was known...
Marshall Cross insisted that there was no danger.
Why did people take their word if the danger was as clear as you say?
Because Marshall Cross have a PR organization that makes the truth irrelevant. They brainwashed that entire area. Oh, they sponsored public events. They spent thousands on advertising, which rescued at least one local paper from bankruptcy, after which they wrote their own editorials. And that's only the service job. It doesn't take into account the backhanders, the promise of fat contracts to come certain people's way, provided Marshall Cross got their way. Oh, there's a whole lot of mud going to be slung, Miss Peterson, and believe me, there's a place for every bit of it to stick.
Some of it, I gather, on Frank Jarrot.
More than a little.
What exactly are you accusing him of?
Corruption. Jarrot made it his business to persuade local opinion that plant was not only safe, but essential to the area. A little speech here, quiet word there.
Nothing wrong in that if he believed it.
Quite, but you see, Jarrot gets $10,000 a year as PR consultant to an engineering firm called Ashlake's. And that firm is a subsidiary of Marshall Cross.
Leakage of toxic fumes from the Marshall Cross chemical plant at Elmdale increased sharply this afternoon with angry exchanges in the House of Commons. Mr. Frank Jarrot, MP for Elmdale, was accused of culpable involvement in the accident. Mr. Jarrot responded by challenging his opponents to repeat their accusations outside the privilege of the House. A spokesman for Ashlake, the engineering company which is a subsidiary of Marshall Cross, confirmed earlier this evening that Mr. Jarrot had been employed by them as a consultant during the past 3.5 years. However, the company stressed that before and during the building of the Elmdale plant, Mr. Jarrot had nothing to do with them whatsoever. Sir Walter Sloane, chairman of Marshall Cross Chemicals, refused at his press conference to make any comment on this aspect of the matter. Now the situation in the Middle East.
That's the only scandal in this business. The way people can say what they damn well like in the House of Commons and get away with it. It stands to reason. If the man wasn't even working for Ashlakes at the time, how the hell can they make out he was being influenced? What do you think? I can believe it of some of them all too easily, but not Frank Jarrot. He's one of the few genuinely decent men in politics. And when you listen to drivel like that, let's go and have dinner and talk about something else.
Yes, I think we should. Talk about something else.
Something the matter?
Well, I suppose you may as well know now as later. The reason I didn't join you for lunch was Frank Jarrot's wife. And this morning I accepted a retainer from a solicitor acting for various people in Elmdale who think that, well, who can't be numbered amongst Frank Jarrot's staunchest supporters. I'm afraid that's all I can say on the matter. And you can understand why it'll be a good idea if we talk about something else.
Are you telling me you think it's true about Frank Jarrot?
I'm not telling you anything. I'd be very glad if you don't ask.
Oh, of course, I understand, but just one thing. If you've been briefed...
I haven't been briefed, I've been retained.
But there's going to be a case.
Not in the usual sense, not a trial. Not yet, anyhow. What people are pressing for is a tribunal of inquiry.
Trial, tribunal, it's all the same thing.
Not really.
Lawyers' jargon, that's all.
Lawyers' jargon, as you call it, means something. We don't just pick the words out with a pin.
All right, then, what is a tribunal if it's not a trial?
It's a body set up by Parliament to look into what is considered to be a matter of urgent public importance. Its job is to find out the facts. Nobody's accused. There are no specific charges. It starts with the premise that something's happened that shouldn't have happened and people want to know why. There are virtually no restrictions on the sort of evidence submitted. Hearsay, gossip, rumours, suspicion, it's all raked up and given an airing. No holds barred. In some ways, it resembles a trial about as much as all in wrestling resembles a game of chess.
But there's someone in charge, surely.
Usually a judge, sitting not as a judge but as chairman. With him are two others who aren't necessarily lawyers at all. When they've heard all they want to hear and asked all the questions they want to ask, they write a report, present it to Parliament, and it's published.
Well, that's all.
Fact is sifted from rumour and the blame, if any, put where it belongs.
Huh. Sounds all right in theory.
Yes, in theory.
Okay. Yes, that's fine. Yes, I'll tell him. Yes, look forward to seeing you. Bye. Anything new?
Not really. Editorial. A matter for public concern. Who's that on the phone?
Ian Moody.
Is this coffee still hot?
I'll make some more.
No. That's fine. You want some?
No, thanks.
I heard that girlfriend of his had been retained by Dennis Chapman.
Yes. He said so.
Told you not to tell me?
No, he didn't say it mattered.
No secret, anyway.
Frank, how serious is this?
Oh, it's nothing to worry about.
Editorials in the press?
Look, I supported the building of that plant for no other reason but I thought it was a damn good idea for the area. 18 months later, I accepted that job at Ashlakes. You'd have to be paranoid to see anything sinister in that.
Well, I believe you. It's not me you have to convince.
Oh, I'm sorry, though.
Darling, oughtn't you to see your solicitor?
There's nothing one can do about anything that's said in the house.
But all the same, you ought to have legal advice.
Like what? I'm helpless. All I can do is just sit there and show everybody I'm not getting rattled. Mind you, if anybody does say anything outside the privilege of the house, I shall slap writs on them so fast I think it's raining paper.
It's funny. Almost. The other night you were telling Ian about all the support you'd had for this bill, and now some of the same people are trying to destroy you.
Well, it's better that they should unite on issues rather than personalities.
Oh, you are infuriating. Look, why do you take it so well?
Well, what do you want me to do? Hit somebody?
Yes.
Oh.
You don't need me nagging you on top of everything else.
You're not nagging.
Well, I just feel so useless to you.
Oh, now that you mention it. Anyway, always remember a week's a long time in politics.
I have noticed. Well, you will be able to carry on with this bill, won't you?
When my accusers are belching on a rich diet of their own words.
Not till then?
Politicians under a cloud are a bit short on moral authority. I can hardly make indignant speeches about the underprivileged whilst being accused of helping to build the biggest gas chamber since Belsen.
South Africa, 1 month after the leakage. A month from now, you'll be able to take the same picture at Elmdale.
Were these ever shown to Jarrot?
First thing we did.
And?
As I told you, he said he was satisfied the same thing couldn't happen again.
In other words, he accepted the company's assurances.
Oh, said he did. The man's either a fool or a liar, and in the circumstances, I don't think the difference matters very much. Especially after what Mr. Villiers has to say.
I gather you're an engineer, Mr. Villiers.
I worked on the filter installation at Elmdale, the thing that must have blown.
As in South Africa and Australia.
We knew about those accidents at the time, but we were led to believe ours was a totally different system. None of us had seen the other two plants, so there was no reason to doubt it.
But you've seen the Australian plant since.
Right. I was one of a team sent out for some specialist work. Not on the filter system, but I did see it. It was exactly what we'd installed at Elmdale.
Marshall Cross told a deliberate lie to silence public objections.
The plant should have been safe. In theory, all of them should. But for some reason...
Doesn't add up. Why would they build a plant that had already proved dangerous in a place where no accident, if it happened, could be covered up?
Economic necessity. It's the way decisions get made at that place. The top brass give an order. Make this system safe. The technicians do their best, a few modifications, and report back they've done everything possible. The brass, most of whom wouldn't know a spanner from a tin whistle, say good boys and go ahead.
A few modifications, you said?
Yeah. Yes, there were modifications at Elmdale, but that doesn't make it a different system. No way.
Not even in layman's terms?
Not unless your layman is also doing PR work for the company. And there were plenty of those around.
Including Frank Jarrot. How much more do people need before they realize what's been going on?
Tribunal of inquiry sounds pretty gruesome, doesn't it?
Oh, you mustn't worry. At least now I have a chance of clearing his name publicly.
Well, you've seen his solicitors at last.
Why was he so stubborn about it?
He just kept saying that public men have to expect these things and put up with them. This is what finally changed his mind.
It's just a cheap scandal sheet. Everyone knows that.
Well, everyone reads it all the same, including Frank. He's even contributed to their libel fund twice.
And I'll have a chance of seeing some of his money back.
Ian, you're a tonic. Thanks for coming round.
I hope it was a good idea.
Well, you and Frank are old friends. It takes more than a lawyer to come between you.
Tell me, does Frank even know Walter Sloane?
Well, he's met him, of course. But they're not close. Barely acquainted.
Well, all I can say is that it...
Darling, Ian's here.
Yes, I know. I saw your car.
Just
Hello,
drop
Ian.
by, Frank, see how you are.
Oh, well, the patient's as well as can be expected.
At least you didn't say victim. That's a healthy sign.
Let's have a drink, shall we?
Well, I was just going to make some tea.
Oh, to hell with tea. Ian, will you join me?
Of course.
Well, there are one or two things I've got to get on with, so if you'll excuse me, Ian.
Surely.
Was that a tactful exit?
It might have been, in a way.
Why? You're going to be dreadfully personal.
No, I was just saying I felt a bit self-conscious being here, what with, well, Harriet. Thanks.
It's not your fault that your girlfriend's a barrister.
On the wrong side.
Lawyers are like beggars. They can't always be choosers.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Frank, I just wanted to say that I think this whole business is disgusting. It's just a bloody witch hunt.
Well, in a way, it's understandable. They're looking for a scapegoat. We live in an age when politicians are the prime suspects for all public scandals and private sorrows. People are hungry for disgrace in high places, perhaps to make the low ones more acceptable. I should never have accepted that position as consultant at Ashlegs. Especially after the part I played in trying to get the Marshall Cross plant built. But then I believed the assurances they gave me that it was safe. I suppose the best that people will think of me is that I unwittingly led my constituents into this. The worst, that I did it deliberately for the promise of money. Let's see which of these your friend Harriet plumps for, shall we?
Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Peterson. I didn't realise you were still here.
That's all right, Bill. Something you wanted?
Just that file on the Collins action. I think it was... Oh, there it is. I have to make a photocopy.
You've seen our terms of reference. Tribunal be established for inquiring into a definite matter of urgent public importance, the causes of, and all the circumstances relating to, the spillage of toxic, etc., etc.
Causes of and all the circumstances relating to. Spreads the net wide enough, doesn't it?
That's what I was thinking. Plenty of room for fishing expeditions in that.
Who's the chairman, did they say?
Mr. Justice Tanner, sitting with Norman Oates, QC, and an engineer, Gillibrand.
Well, Tanner's a fair man. Shouldn't think he'd let things get out of hand.
I don't know whether it's better for me if he does or doesn't. Quite frankly, Bill, I'm beginning to feel somewhat out of my depth. How does a trial lawyer fit into a situation where the rules of a trial don't apply?
As best you can, I imagine, Miss Peterson.
You're a great help.
Do my best. Would you like me to give you a little more room, Miss
Thanks,
Peterson?
Bill. If the example of past tribunals is any guide, the whole thing will be alive with QCs. Most of them probably for Marshall Cross.
Well, you'll be taking suit yourself before long, I dare say.
Does it offend you, Bill, having a head of chambers who's not a QC?
Oh, goodness me, no, Miss Peterson. Besides, it's foregone conclusion next time. When the Treasury solicitor gets that statement from your Mr. Villiers, Tribunal's going to have Marshall Cross and a lot of them by the scruff of the neck.
I suspect you're right. Whatever's proved or not proved against Frank Jarrot, Marshall Cross are going to be hard-pressed to deny that they lied about the safety of that plant. One way or another, they fobbed off the people of Elmdale with something that had proved dangerous on 2 separate occasions.
All they can do now is try shoveling the butt round one to another.
An edifying spectacle.
Do you no harm at all, appearing on the side you are? In an age of conservation consciousness, no harm at all.
It's as good as ever. Asparagus.
I had pate.
I had asparagus.
Oh, I see. Good. No. Not talking about it doesn't mean I don't trust you.
I understand. Really?
It's just wiser.
Quite.
Not that I'd expect you to go rushing round to Frank Jarrot with any indiscretion.
Any more like I'm rushing round to you if I knew something against him.
Do you? I know he's an old friend.
Public duty? Oh, come on, Harry. Don't miss a bloody story.
Ian, this isn't just a parking offence.
It isn't
you know.
even a parking offence. That man is one of the few people to make a name for himself in politics who might conceivably have done some good with it. That bill of his on handicapped children make a difference to thousands of lives, millions in time. And now, because of a ragbag of rumour and gossip, his whole career and that bill with it look like going down the drain.
Toxic nature of the escaping fumes, there is no dispute. For that we have stark evidence. Nor is it denied that an event as random as a change of wind at the wrong moment would have wreaked upon this town a tragedy awful to contemplate. The task of this tribunal, as laid down by Parliament, is to identify the causes of and all the circumstances relating to this occurrence. To which purpose I now call upon counsel to the tribunal to present his first witness.
15 years a member.
6 as chairman of the Elmdale Development Advisory Committee.
And when the question arose of this chemical plant being built here, what was your committee's advice?
Caution.
For what reason?
For reasons that were eventually proved right.
Did you personally share this original caution?
Oh, very much so. You read such hair-raising stories of these things, chemical works, refineries and the like. Obviously, we were worried about possible smells, smoke, noise, anything that might affect the quality of life in the area.
But your objection was to the idea in general of a chemical works, not to the prospect of Marshall Cross plant in particular.
Oh, very much so, in general.
Thank you.
Now, Mrs. Shipton.
Alderman Shipton.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman Shipton.
Just one moment, if you please, Sir William.
Of course.
Mrs. Shipton, or Alderman Shipton, if you insist. Caution, you said. The advice of your committee was caution. What did you mean by that?
We should wait and see. We didn't want to close the door completely. I mean, it meant jobs, other possible benefits.
Thank you. Sir William?
You were saying, Alderman Shipton, other benefits such as?
Well, there was the building work, a bonus for the local building industry and allied trade.
You had been told that the work would be distributed locally.
Oh, there were no promises, nothing like that. It was just, well, mentioned that it would only be logical for local firms to get the bulk of the work.
And who drew your attention to this logical probability?
A number of people. Contractors themselves, of course, and Mr. Jarrot, our Member of Parliament. We wanted to hear all sides of the argument.
At what stage did you decide that the benefits of this scheme outweighed its dangers?
What, me? Or the committee as a whole?
The committee as a whole.
After some 8 or 9 months.
And yourself?
About the same time. It was the general feeling.
For what purpose, can you say?
General discussion, publicly and in the local press.
Was there any one final thing that caused you to change your mind? You yourself?
The same as most other people's. The safety factor. Once we'd received assurances that there could be none of the dangers from this plant that we'd feared, that was it.
And where did these assurances come from?
From the company itself, Marshall Cross.
And you accepted these assurances at their face value?
I think what happened was that people accepted the judgment of the leaders of the community, such as Mr. Jarrot. He addressed a special meeting of the committee at which he assured us that he'd received a personal undertaking from the chairman of Marshall Cross Chemicals that the plant would present no danger.
Thank you, Mrs. Alderman Shipton.
Do I...
Remain seated, if you would, Mrs. Shipton. It may be that counsel for interested parties may wish to put a question to you. Miss Peters, for the Landowners and Tenants Association.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman, in the beginning, were you aware of opposition to this scheme from the Association of Landowners and Tenants in Elmdale?
Oh, indeed. And we took it very seriously. The plant was to be built on the edge of the town, so they stood to be as vulnerable as anybody else.
In the event, more so.
In the event.
And were you aware that even after the consensus of opinion, as you suggest, had begun to favor the scheme, these people continued to oppose it?
Yes.
What reason did they give?
They still said it was dangerous. Those 2 accidents abroad, Australia, South Africa, defoliation and so on.
As eventually happened here.
The fact, I think, is adequately established, Miss Peterson.
I'm in no doubt of that, Mr. Chairman. What caused you to ignore that evidence?
It wasn't evidence. Basically, it was just their opinion that the plant to be built here was the same. They hadn't been out there to check.
Had you?
No.
You were content to accept the word of Marshall Cross?
We weren't the final arbiters.
But you knew that local opinion was likely to prove decisive.
That's true, yes.
And you were in a position to gauge that opinion, perhaps even influence it?
Now, just a minute.
I'm not suggesting that you did. But what persuaded you to disregard the fears of the association in favor of the equally unproven assurances of Marshall Cross that what you were getting was different from and safer than the plants where accidents had occurred?
As I said before, general feeling.
For instance?
Well, the views of Mr. Jarrot, for one. He's been well thought of in the constituency, and not just by his own party. Certainly, we never thought he'd lead us up the garden path like this.
Mrs. Shipton, let us leave prejudiced comment aside. Time enough for the analysis of rumor and gossip later.
I wasn't in a position to know whether the plant at Elmdale was in fact simply a modification or a totally new system.
Like everyone else, you had only the word of Marshall Cross.
Yeah. Not until later, of course, when I found out for myself.
That the Elmdale plant was not a new system.
There were minor modifications.
Did those modifications add up to something which might reasonably be described as a new system?
Not by any stretch of the imagination.
It seems to have been clearly established in some minds that what made the scheme acceptable was your personal assurance of its safety. Would you agree?
Up to a point.
What point exactly?
I gave an assurance that the plant was safe. I don't think you'll find me anywhere on record as saying that the system it used was new. Anyway, this is all very academic. What eventually happened could have occurred with the new plant just as easily.
We are not concerned with that. The question is, did you or did you not give assurance of the plant's safety?
I did.
Did you or did you not say the system was new?
I did not.
Sir Walter, if you didn't say it was new, how did the idea get about?
Misunderstanding, I suppose.
On the part of everyone but you?
No, on the part of the man who came to see me representing the community.
And who was that?
A member of Parliament, Mr. Frank Jarrot.
What's this all about?
I wanted to talk to you confidentially. Don't worry about William. It's the soul of discretion.
Must be catching.
I just pay him twice what he's worth. It does wonders for loyalty.
What is it you want?
You're going to call me a liar tomorrow.
Oh, that's the word I was looking for.
Care for a drink?
I think we've played this scene before.
You had a drink that time.
In that case, the answer's no.
This time.
And you can take that schneid innuendo right back.
Wouldn't it be simpler if I took back the money, too?
What money?
The money I've been paying you.
I earned that money, honestly.
As a PR consultant, come, Frank, it was twice what you're worth.
I'm not your paid lackey, Sloane, whatever you may think.
That's not what some people say.
You shouldn't believe everything you read in the papers.
Just because we didn't use certain ugly and emotive words, that doesn't alter what was understood between us.
Understood on your side, maybe. Your side only.
You knew the game, Frank. You played it too well not to.
Game?
You were a young MP 6 years ago. Big ambitions, a family, and no private income. Someone introduced you to me, and I said, come back in a couple of years when you've had a bit of experience. I wasn't looking for a constitutional expert, was I, Frank?
I made no deal with you.
We discussed an eventual job for you at Ash Lakes. I still get a nice, warm feeling remembering the look on your face when I mentioned the likely salary.
I never agreed to lie for it.
And you've never had to. You don't have to tomorrow. All you have to do is to remember what I said about that plant.
You said it was a new system.
I said it was perfectly safe, that's all. Virtually new, I may have said. May. I think you'll find the mistake was yours.
The only mistake I made was taking your word at face value.
You were anxious to please, Frank, to please me. You embellished what I said.
I wasn't working for you when you gave me that assurance for my constituents.
No. But you came back later to claim that job at Ash Lakes. At the salary we discussed.
That's got nothing to do with it. You're not going to save your skin by sacrificing mine. As far as I'm concerned, you're a bloody liar. I'm going to say so tomorrow.
It won't do any good. We're dealing in reputations, Frank, not proof of corruption or bribery. Only stupid men get involved in things like that. You made a mistake, misunderstood what I said, that's all. You've got egg on your face, but it'll wipe off. You stand a chance, a good chance, of surviving politically. So why throw it away by starting a fight with me, each of us calling the other a liar? That'll do neither of us any good, least of all you. And the country expects great things of you, Frank, in the future. Great things. Ron, pull up if you see a taxi. We can't have you seen getting out of this car, can we?
I can have the names of you two. Oh, good evening, Mr. Jarrot.
A misunderstanding, Mr. Jarrot?
It's the only possible explanation.
You are saying that a simple misunderstanding could account for an accident which took one life, might have taken many more, and which destroyed valuable crops and farmland?
It's the only explanation short of calling either Sir Walter Sloane or myself a liar. Neither alternative is justified.
Mr. Jarrot, did it ever occur to you to get Sir Walter's assurance to you in writing so as to avoid any risk of misunderstanding?
Well, these things don't work like that.
These things?
These consultations. You don't go to a man at the top and demand something in writing. Not in politics, not in business. There has to be an element of mutual trust, confidence. And it's a personal thing.
How well do you know Sir Walter Sloane?
Not well.
But well enough for this mutual trust to exist between you?
Yes.
And well enough to be a passenger in his private car last night? I gather you were involved in a minor road accident.
Yes, we were.
Do you have any objection to telling this tribunal exactly what you and Sir Walter were discussing up to that point?
Why should I have?
That is for you to say, Mr. Jarrot.
We were trying to analyze how the misunderstanding could have arisen.
Would I be misrepresenting what you've just said if I paraphrased it slightly? If, for instance, I said that you and Sir Walter were attempting to come to an understanding?
Yes, you would be.
In what way would I be?
Well, you make it sound as though we were trying to come to some kind of...
Deal?
I would prefer you allowed me to speak for myself.
That is all I ask, Mr. Jarrot.
Mr. Jarrot, let me get this absolutely clear. You do not deny that you had a conversation last night with Sir Walter Sloane?
No, I don't deny it.
A private conversation?
Well, as there was no one else present, I suppose you could call it a private conversation, yes.
A confidential conversation. Or did you wish to accuse me, too, of misrepresenting what you have just said?
I do not deny that a conversation took place.
Carry on, Miss Peterson.
Mr. Jarrot, let me ask you to look at what you did last night, taking perhaps a broader view of it than you did at the time. Put yourself in the position of a member of this tribunal, in my position even, or in the position of one of your constituents. Would you think it unreasonable if any of us viewed this continuing intimacy with Sir Walter, after all that's happened and all that's been said, would it be unreasonable of us to regard this friendship with some suspicion?
I suppose, looked at like that, no, I can't say it would be unreasonable.
You can't say it would be unreasonable. What can you say, Mr. Jarrot?
Just this. In spite of the innuendo that I accepted the position at Ashlake's as a bribe, I would like to make it quite clear that I did not enter public life in order to line my own pocket, but to do some of the things that I considered to be worthwhile. Unfortunately, you cannot run crusades on a backbencher's money. The job at Ashlake's offered a chance to provide myself and my family with a decent standard of living, while getting on with the things that I had set out to do, without compromise. That's all there is to it.
While Sir Walter Sloane's intention to influence Mr. Jarrot into a favorable attitude towards Marshal Cross is undoubted, no evidence was found to justify charges of corruption. We are also satisfied that Mr. Jarrot acted from no deliberately dishonest motive. However, his situation underlines the dilemma facing anyone in public life, that of treading an appropriate path between public duty and private interest. We can only conclude that Mr. Jarrot did not succeed in following that path.
Is that enough to damage him?
Damage? It's the end. He was tempted, Bill. Thought he'd found some easy money. Worst of all, he was careless. We know our politicians are only human, but God help them if they show it.
Still doesn't seem fair. Walter Sloane getting off scot-free.
He's a businessman. Different game, different rules. And answerable only to his shareholders.
They could still vote him out.
Not out of the money he's made them. You know where to put it?
Top shelf?
Only if it's a dust trap.
Of course, you said yourself, Miss Peterson. They were only there to look into things, not to pronounce on innocence or guilt.
No, that's something they can safely leave to others.
won't get half of it in the flat.
The other half's junk anyway.
Yes, but...
No buts. There's always a silver whatnot.
To think they were moving today of all days.
A boy dead, a whole town might have been. A fortune spent finding out why. Public money, yours and mine. And what's the outcome? A dazzling display of how to pass the buck.
On to the one man least responsible and most used to the human race. Was it worth it?